Welcome to Grade 12 Artificial Intelligence. In this advanced module, we study how artificial intelligence is governed, the laws, frameworks, and agreements that decide how it may be built and used. By the end, you'll understand why governance matters, how the world's main approaches differ, and how nations try to balance innovation with rights and safety. Here is our plan for the lesson. We'll first ask why artificial intelligence needs governance at all. We'll compare the main approaches from the European Union to the United States and beyond. We'll examine risk-based regulation and the standards, audits, and accountability that make rules real. We'll weigh innovation against rights and safety, and finish by seeing how countries coordinate across borders. Let's begin with the central question: why govern artificial intelligence? These systems now help decide who receives a loan, who is shortlisted for a job, how patients are diagnosed, and where policing is focused. When such systems are wrong or carry hidden bias, the harm can reach many people at once. And because complex models are hard to inspect, it can be unclear who is responsible when something goes wrong. Governance answers this by setting clear expectations. It builds public trust and keeps use within the law. The goal is not to forbid the technology, but to capture its benefits while protecting people. To do that, different societies have built different frameworks. The world's two most influential approaches sit at different points on a spectrum. The European Union has passed the AI Act, a binding law that took effect in 2024. It is risk-based and applies across the whole bloc, with legal duties that grow heavier as the risk grows, and penalties for those who do not comply. The United States, by contrast, leans on the voluntary framework from its National Institute of Standards and Technology, together with rules in specific sectors and executive actions. Its stance is lighter and innovation first, shaped more by guidance than by a single comprehensive law. Both aim at trustworthy artificial intelligence. They pursue it through different instruments. Other regions add yet more models, which we'll meet shortly. The European law rests on one elegant idea: regulate a system in proportion to the risk it poses. Picture a pyramid. At the broad base sits minimal risk artificial intelligence, such as spam filters and the AI in video games. This is largely left unregulated. Above it, limited risk systems like chatbots carry transparency duties, so a user must be told they are dealing with a machine. Higher still, high-risk systems, those used in hiring, in credit decisions, or as medical devices, face strict requirements before and after they are deployed. And at the narrow top sit unacceptable uses, such as social scoring of citizens or deliberately manipulative AI. These are banned outright. Notice the shape: the higher the risk, the heavier the obligation, while most everyday systems live safely in the broad base. Rules, though, are only as strong as the way we check them. A law on paper changes little without machinery to enforce it. First come standards, the shared technical benchmarks written by bodies such as the International Standards Organizations and the United States Standards Institute. Next come audits, independent testing of a system for bias, safety, and robustness, much like a financial audit checks the books. Good governance also demands documentation, model cards and data cards that record what a system does and how it was built. At the center is accountability, a named person or organization who must answer for the system's outcomes. And finally, redress, the right of an affected person to question, contest, and appeal a decision made by AI. Together, these turn principles into practice, yet enforcing them raises a genuine tension. Every governance choice balances three goals that can pull against one another: innovation, rights, and safety. Govern too lightly, and we risk real harms, hidden bias, and a loss of public trust. Govern too heavily, and we can smother innovation and slow the adoption of genuinely helpful tools. Rights anchor the balance: privacy, fairness, human dignity, and meaningful human oversight of important decisions. A practical middle path is the regulatory sandbox. where firms test new systems safely under a regulator's supervision. The aim throughout is proportion, rules strong enough to protect people, yet measured enough to let good ideas grow. Because AI crosses borders, this balance cannot be struck by any one country alone. Artificial intelligence does not stop at a border, so nations work to align their thinking. The principles agreed at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development set out shared values that AI should be human-centered, transparent, robust, and accountable. UNESCO's recommendation on the ethics of AI, adopted in 2021, is the first global standard of its kind, endorsed by 193 member states. And the Bletchley Declaration of 2023 brought many governments together to cooperate on the safety of the most advanced frontier systems. The goal of this work is interoperability, so that different legal systems can still work together, and shared norms reduce any race to the bottom. These ideas already shape policy in countries far apart. Let's see how this looks in practice, described plainly and even-handedly. Rwanda adopted a national AI policy in 2023, among the early national strategies on the African continent, pairing ambition for innovation with a commitment to ethical, responsible use. The European Union applies its binding, risk-based AI Act across all its member states. The United Kingdom has chosen a lighter, principles-based path, asking existing regulators to apply common principles within their own sectors. And the United States relies on its voluntary national framework alongside rules written for particular sectors. These approaches differ in their tools, yet each draws on the same shared principles, and each aims at artificial intelligence that is trustworthy and beneficial. Before we recap, let's correct a few common misunderstandings. First, governance does not mean banning artificial intelligence. Outright bans are rare, and mostly it sets the conditions for safe use. Second, voluntary frameworks are not toothless. They shape industry norms and expectations very widely. Third, there is no single global law that governs all AI. Instead, there are national and regional rules, joined by shared principles. Fourth, ethics and law are related but distinct. Ethics guide what we ought to do, while law compels what we must. And fifth, more rules do not automatically mean more safety. Rules that fit the risk matter far more than rules that are merely numerous. With those cleared up, let's gather the key ideas. Let's gather today's key ideas. Governance exists to protect people while keeping the benefits of artificial intelligence. The European Union's AI Act is binding and risk-based, while the United States framework is voluntary. Risk-based regulation sorts systems into tiers, from minimal up to unacceptable uses that are banned. Standards, audits, accountability, and redress are what turn rules into real protection. Good policy balances innovation, rights, and safety together, and bodies like the OECD, UNESCO, and the Bletchley Declaration align nations on shared norms. Now, let's check these ideas with 3 quick questions. Here is the first question. Under the European AI Act's risk tiers, where would a system that gives citizens a social score belong? Social scoring of citizens is treated as an unacceptable use. It sits at the top of the pyramid and it is banned outright. Question 2. A country issues a voluntary framework to guide developers rather than a single binding law. Which of the approaches we studied is this closest to? A voluntary guidance-based framework matches the United States model, built around its National Institute of Standards and Technology, rather than the European Union's binding AI Act. Last question, and it brings several ideas together. A regulator lets a startup test a new medical AI safely under supervision before any full release. What is this tool called, and which goals does it balance? This is a regulatory sandbox. It lets innovation move forward while protecting rights and safety at the same time, the very balance that good governance aims for. Wonderful work. You now understand why artificial intelligence is governed. how the European, United States, and other approaches differ, and how risk tiers, standards, and international agreements fit together. As you meet AI in the world, ask who is accountable and which rules apply. In the next module, we'll look ahead to the future of artificial intelligence and its emerging frontiers. I'll see you there.